Hey, it's Steven here from Marketplace Superheroes, and in this video I'm going to break down for you 10 things you must avoid with your first Amazon private label product. So one of the most important things you can do when you're selling your first product on Amazon is know exactly what to avoid and why to avoid it. Why? Well, it's simple. It's because you want to have success with your first product and you want to try and avoid any possible mistake that could set you back. So I'm going to break down 10 for you right now, and we're going to start with the first one. The first one is fulfill demand, don't create demand. It is the primary rule that we follow at Marketplace Superheroes. And what does it mean? Well, it's really simple. When you're selling a product on Amazon, you always want to be looking at what's already selling. You do not want to be coming up with some new invention, something you just came up with last night when you thought about it, or anything like that. Absolutely not. The best thing to do is say, right, what is selling on Amazon? Why is it selling? How can I improve it? And in that way, you know you're selling a proven item with proven demand that people actually take money out of their wallet, well, their credit card, and they buy on Amazon. It's so important. Now, creating demand on the other side, that's like, think about Apple. If they invent something new, some new thing that like the iPhone, for example, like it had never really been seen before. It was a phone, so it was something that was understood, but it was a smartphone. It had never been seen before. So in some ways, they had to begin creating demand for this thing with the people that were going to buy it. You do not want to do that. You want to sell simple, everyday items that are really easy to understand, that people want to buy and want to give you money for. The second thing is make sure your item is not hazardous. Very important. When you go onto Amazon, the kind of tricky thing here is if you scroll down, even say like the top 100 in kitchen and home and kitchen or something like that, and the names change all the time. But in those kinds of categories, you're going to see items like bleach and stuff like that. In some cases, Amazon themselves are selling. The issue for you and me as an FBA seller is many of those things are considered hazardous by Amazon for a third-party seller. That's where we are, right? Therefore, you do not want to be selling these types of things. I'll give you an example. A number of years ago, we used to sell Chinese lanterns. Okay, you know the things, you light them up to go into the sky. We sold loads of them, but here was the problem. They were hazardous, right? There was a fuel cell inside them, and you could not send them over via air. You could not air freight them. So what this meant was that Amazon eventually said, oh, we can't ship this to, say, Germany from the UK. It has to go via air. We can't do it because it's hazardous. It has a fuel cell in it. So what did they do? They came back to us and said, as a hazardous item, you can't sell it anymore. That's it. We also sold things years ago like dehumidifier bags and stuff like that, which we didn't even realize. We're like, these can't be hazardous. They just can't be. But they were. There was a little compound within them that was considered hazardous. So what you always want to do when you're doing your research then is make sure that the item you're selling isn't hazardous, right? And I just realized I said hazardous about a million times, and I hope that I've drilled it home for you in that second rule. So let's move on to number 3. Make sure your product is not easily breakable or fragile, okay? So we're talking about glass items and things like that. Now, there are some cases with a glass item, for example, if you're selling tempered glass, it's like safety glass, that might be okay, but you're gonna see it whenever you're researching your products. You're gonna see that looks breakable, it looks like something that's fragile. You just wanna avoid that for your first product, especially because if all those come in, if you ship them in via air, maybe if it's a small item, and they all break in transit, you've got nothing to sell now. Equally, if they come via sea, and again, they break when they're coming on the way in, if someone throws a box and they all break, that's not somewhere you want to be. So avoid fragile items. We avoid them in general, even beyond the first item, but definitely do not do it for item number 1 because you're just putting yourself at needless risk. The next one is don't sell electrical items, okay? So things that are plugged into the wall or anything like that. The reason for that is, number 1, returns are high with electrical items. It's very obvious, but again, it's something people tend to avoid. They don't take this advice from us typically, and then they end up selling something that when they try to expand into Europe, for example, from the US, it's a different plug. The sockets are different, the plugs are different, and it's not easily expandable. So that's not something you want to get into. Also, because of return rates, let's face it, if an item is electrical, it's going to have a lot of moving parts in it. It's going to have a lot of things that can go wrong. And so on your first item, like, you will get samples and all of that from a supplier, but it's really possible that that item could just break. It could be faulty. It could just be not well made. And these are all issues that you just want to avoid completely by just not selling electrical items. So do not do it. I know it might seem tempting if you see something that's even high priced and high profit, but please don't do it, especially on your first item. 5, avoid items that have a power source. So I know we just talked about electrical items. We're talking here now batteries, things like that, because again, it can be very easy to go faulty. Also, batteries have acid in them, which again is very dangerous, and batteries can go off as well. They actually do have a sell by date, which you may or may not know. So anything that is powered is just not something you want to get involved in. And again, I will say, not that you don't ever want to get involved in it, but for your first item, and that's what we're talking about today, is just needless complication. The types of items you should be selling are, and I'm not saying sell these, but storage boxes, things like that, accessories that you can include with, say, like someone sells in our community, it's so funny, the little covers that you put on the feet of washing machines. That's the kind of thing you want to be looking at. You don't want to be looking at anything that is powered, electrical, or anything like that, even though it might sell a lot every single day. It might make a lot of money. It's just not worth it on your first item. Keep it simple. Go with things that don't have moving parts, that aren't complicated, or anything of that nature, and you will be on the right track. Avoid items that have sharp edges, all right? So obviously knives are a good example. They are sharp, they have sharp edges, and of course in many cases they're prohibited anyway by Amazon. But there are kitchen knives and things like that you could be selling that they're kind of a gray area. We've sold things like that in the past, sold them for a while, then Amazon said, no more, you can't sell them anymore. So I would avoid all of those kinds of things. Also, even things that have a sharp edge to it, they can be potentially dangerous as well, right? And that's something you want to be looking out for. It's hard to give you like concrete examples of what I'm talking about. Whenever you see an item though, if let's say it was steel, it was metal, and it was in a box shape, that could have very sharp edges on it. And that's something that you might want to just consider leaving off for the first item, because it could cause injury to somebody, and it could be something that's even hard to import as well, because it could easily break, it could bend, or anything on those lines. So avoid sharp edges. Definitely avoid things like knives and stuff like that. Next one, avoid products that have an odd shape to them. Again, hard to give exact examples of this, but you'll see it when you're looking at a product. It could be something that's very hard to box, put a box around, put any kind of a wrapper around whatsoever. And these are things that you really want to keep away from. Similarly, there's items then that just you can't put a box around them, so they put like a tag on them. I would keep away from those items as well. You want your product to be able to go into a box or a soft packaging. That's what you want to be looking for. And these just don't conform to that. And so an odd shape, like how are you going to box it and import it? And even if you can box an odd shape, what's the problem? The problem is there's going to be a lot of space in there. There's going to be a lot of air in there. And that's again going to cost you more money because you can't pack as many of them into an area as you would like. Sometimes people like to go, oh, well, I can stack them inside each other. And typically these are just really hard to send into Amazon. They don't like it that way. They like things in boxes. They like things in their own pack. So I would keep away from odd shapes, big shapes that are hard to put a box around, or anything like that. Anything that's going to have air as well, you want to keep away from, because it's just going to cause you a lot of hassle. So let's get on to the next one. Avoid items that are multi-boxed. This one is pretty obvious, but I really want to mention it. You might look at something, for example, like garden furniture. You can sell it, even though it's going to be a big item, as long as it's within Amazon's requirements. You could sell that in a box, right? Now it's going to be heavy and all of that, but that can be fine. But the issue could be like if there's 3 different boxes this thing comes in, you're not going to be able to sell it in FBA. You're not going to be able to send it in. It's as simple as that. Amazon might be able to do it now. And that's where the confusion could lie. You could see Amazon are selling something and you're like, well, if they're selling it, surely I can sell it. But it doesn't work that way. Amazon have slightly different rules for what they can do than what they allow their third-party sellers to do when they're using fulfillment by Amazon. So again, this is something you absolutely must avoid. And typically, if it's a very big item, that's where you're going to see something that's multi-boxed. So keep away from it, move on. Down the line, maybe you could do it, but well, that's if Amazon changed the rules. So it's never going to happen. So let's move on. Getting to the end now, the second last one. I hope I drove this home earlier on, but I'm going to restate it slightly differently. And that is, do not invent your own product. Now, I know you might say, well, this isn't like an item specific to avoid. This is just a business principle, and it's a very important one. Do not invent your own product. Don't come up with a new idea. Don't even take an item that you found and alter it in any way. The reason for that is simple. Look, when you go to a factory, you've got to understand something. You're speaking to somebody who is producing a number of products, okay? And in some cases, they could be producing the same item for a couple of different people in a couple of different markets, right? The last thing you want to do is come in and say, I want you to take that plastic shoebox and I want to alter the design and the look of it to look something like this. And you give them all your plans that you've drawn up or something like that. And the reason you want to avoid that is this is going to cost you quite a lot of money because the factory is going to have to alter how things are produced on the production line. That means they're going to have to bring in different modifications to their machinery even potentially. They might have to bring in all these different pieces that are going to help you design different packaging. So this is something you really don't want to get involved in. Down the line, maybe. We personally don't do it. We never have done it. We've spent our time instead looking for suppliers who have products that are cosmetically different to what everybody else is putting into the market. That's how we tend to avoid this. But just don't make modifications. Don't come up with a new item. Keep it simple on your first product, please, because that's what it's all about. Getting into stock, getting your item launched, getting your item selling. It's not about trying to have a world-beating product as your first item. As a matter of fact, your first item, even if it doesn't do very well, it doesn't matter because it's got you over the fear of making a purchase. It's taught you so much along the way, and you can take all those lessons into success into the future. Final one, avoid anything ingestible and avoid anything you put on your skin or comes in contact with your eyes or anything like that. So we're talking even supplements, vitamins on the ingestible side. We're talking different types of makeup applications on your face, near your eyes, all of that. You just got to keep away. These are things that companies spend a lot of time trialing and testing with laboratories in many cases, and you just got to keep away from it. These formulations are great in some cases, but they're very dangerous in many other cases. I've got a number of friends in this market, and their businesses are much bigger. So I would just keep away from these products. I don't care what your Amazon guru is telling you to do. I don't care if they're telling you this cream in the beauty market is something you absolutely got to do. I would keep away from it from your first item. Keep it really simple and move forward. When you start putting in these complications, going back to the electrical thing, getting certifications, needing FDA approval, needing all these different boards to approve your products and get more certifications, you're just wasting time that you could have been putting your item into stock and getting it selling. Now, I know some of these items can sell thousands of units a day, but it's just not worth it. So keep away from it on your first product. And as you get more advanced, as I always say, maybe. But again, we typically avoid these products because it's just not going to give us the lifestyle that we're looking for with this type of an Amazon FBA business. They're not simple, they're complicated, they're potentially dangerous, they can cause issues from an insurance standpoint, so we just keep away and we keep it simple. So that's it for this video. I hope you enjoyed it. More importantly though, I hope you learned something. And what I'd like you to do is a couple of things. Number one, subscribe to the channel. Number two, really appreciate you liking this video as well. And number three, I'd really like it if you would comment and tell me what's one thing you took away from this video today, or what's one question you have about any of the 10 things I talked about that you would like me to answer in more detail. Also, we are going to give you some free training to help you get your Amazon business up and running from scratch the right way on a global scale. As you know, that's what we teach at Marketplace Superheroes that nobody else out there is teaching. So please go to the description. You'll find a link there. Click on the link. It'll bring you back to our site. Put in your best email address and we will send you some free training straight away that I promise you is highly valuable. It's not the typical rehash stuff that you see everybody else doing. It's our unique way of building a global business that we have helped thousands of people do, and we have also been doing it ourselves for years. So that's it from me. See you in the next video. Get subscribing to the channel, and I will see you on the next one.